Hello and welcome to Ask George Test 5 Day -1.
Hello, sorry.
Oh, sorry, you're doing your thing. That's laughing. I've not done these for a few tests. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Good. Shall we get straight into it with a personal one, I fear, with your background? AM Ruth asks, a highly unusual Ask George, but did I just walk past you on the Harborne Walkway in Birmingham?
You may well have done. That's my running route, and it's a bit depressing if you walk past me. I hope we won't go in the same direction, although it's entirely possible. Yeah, sadly, I've had to come home for various dull reasons, which I won't bore you with. Hey, it's become the thing to do, hasn't it? To leave a tour for personal reasons. I just wanted to fit in. So I've done that too. And yes, I will be doing this one from TV, I'm afraid. Sorry about that, but that's the way it works out. So yes, you should have said hello.
Might not have thought it was he didn't know it was you. He thought you were in Dharamsala.
I fear I was probably sweating horrendously. And yeah, anyway, as I say, it's on my running route, so it's a hideous sight.
And ironically, you've come home to slightly warmer weather.
I don't know that that's true.
By the sounds of it.
I don't think that's true, I think that people keep looking at the weather forecast
at
the top of the mountains, where it's quite a lot colder than where the ground is. The ground's going to be okay. It'll be like it's 15, 16 degrees or something.
No, quite. Anyway, let's get into this. Obviously, the series over, but still a game to go. And from the questions we've got here, a fair bit to play for. And let's start with Mark Bennett. Says, could this be the end of the road for Jonny Bairstow, Ben Folkes, Jack Leach, and possibly James Anderson maybe after the summer? As you're writing right now, I think England is sort of looking towards Ashes stuff post this. Yeah.
Hello. Yes. So there are quite a lot of names there. I mean, that's
retiring off the team.
Of course, it's possible. I think you'd be a brave person to write off James Anderson, wouldn't you? At this stage, who were the other ones? Jack Leach,
Jonny Bairstow, Ben Folkes.
God, Ben Folkes. Well, I suppose it could. I mean, yes, a million things could happen, couldn't they? Ben Folkes could have a freak gardening accident or be eaten by an escaped bear, but it doesn't seem especially likely. I don't know. I mean, obviously he's kept brilliantly. They need him to score more runs, but he scored more than Bairstow and almost as many as Stokes. He's batted for a lot of balls, which isn't irrelevant. And who would replace him? I mean, maybe the Durham Ollie Robinson. Feels a bit
bold. Be bold to give Sussex Ollie Robinson the gloves.
It would be bold, judging by his fielding. In the previous test, would be a bad plan too. But you do have to say which Ollie Robinson, don't you? I mean, you can't just. Anyway,
and you said that Johnny won't reel off 100 off 85 balls in the next 24 hours.
Right.
It'd be very Jonny Bairstow.
It absolutely would. But there's a legitimate question there. I think England probably should, at the end of this series, start looking towards the Ashes, which is 20 months away. And you do have questions to ask about, can Johnny be there? He'll be 36, I think. Can Jimmy Anderson, he'll be 43, be there? Should he be there? Questions about all these people. And that is absolutely right that they should. Of all that you've mentioned, I would think that Jack Leach is perhaps the most vulnerably placed. But it could be Jonny Bairstow's last test. And I think I've been really struck by the way that he seems to divide opinion on social media. In person, you would struggle, I think, not to like Jonny Bairstow. But he obviously doesn't come across like that to everybody. There's this theory as well that he's only getting picked because he's one of the boys or something. This is nonsense. I mean, he has never been part of that clique. He's really not. I think that's actually been to his detriment. So he's a very different guy to Ben Stokes. I'll tell you something. A little while, there was that ridiculous story about how he sustained his leg injury. Literally a nonsense story that Stokes had supposedly jumped on him and tackled him when playing golf. Nonsense. And someone in the England management said to me, the reason they knew that wasn't true the second they heard it is because they knew that Stokes and Bairstow wouldn't be playing golf. It's not that they don't get on, it's that they're very, very different. So I don't think there's any truth in the fact that he's been selected because he's part of the sort of in crowd. He's been selected. I mean, have you seen him bat? He can be extraordinarily good. I mean, he can be as good as any of them. So, but he's obviously patchy. It's absolutely possible that they go a different way at the end of this series and that Harry Brook comes back. But equally, you know, Ollie Pope is scoring runs very patchily. Yeah, Bairstow could even end up back with the gloves. So I think there's quite a lot of water to go under the bridge yet. But I do hope that they start looking and planning for that Ashes series 20 months ago. I know McCullum is full of, you know, live where your feet are and a million other sort of inspirational poster type quotes. But I hope that they're a bit more sophisticated than that.
Nikhil asks, should there be greater recognition of the fact that a significantly weakened India have won the series against a more experienced England side? Do we take India's home form for granted and subconsciously not give them enough credit for their grit?
I mean, I don't know how much more that could have been said. I think almost every piece I've written, I'm not responsible for what anyone else thinks or says. But I think that people have made the point that they're without Virat and Mohammad Shami and Rishabh Pant and, you know, at times Bumrah and Rahul and whoever else you want to mention. And I think that's been mentioned a lot. Do they get credit for the home record? I don't know. I think everyone knows that going to India and trying to win is daunting, don't they? I think that's been mentioned a lot. Have they got credit for the way? I'm not sure Rohit's got credit for the way he's captained at times. It's obviously, well, he hasn't got a catchphrase, has he? No one says row ball or anything like that. But he's been. I mean, basically, he's 3-1 up with one to play on a real basic level. There have been a couple of moments in the series where England have had opportunities, and has marshalled his resources well, kept his team calm, and even when he hasn't been in the best form himself, he's found a way to lead the side, which, as you say, is relatively inexperienced, to a worthy victory. But I don't really think that people have underrated the achievement. To be honest, I don't. But
I guess what has become clear as well is, people knew already. I guess what it's really shown is the strength and depth of Indian red ball cricket, in so much the guys who've come in to replace those guys who've been missing. Whether that's what Akashdeep in the last test. Obviously, Jaiswal didn't come into the series new, but he's fairly new in his test career. Yeah. I think you'd say only Patidar, is that right, has come in, and Mukesh Kumar, I guess, have come in and sort of struggled to make an impact. Sarfaraz Khan at the business from Ball One.
Oh, he's all right. Yeah.
But once again, I feel like people feel like that has been. I hope that's been said. Certainly felt like
I think it's been said loads, but what was it? So talking to a few friends, well, Indian cricket journo friends, they were slightly concerned about the next generation. And Bumrah and Ashwin are very experienced players, and replacing them, no doubt, will be tough. I think Bumrah's very hard to replace, but he's kind of he's a very special bowler. I think he's the best India ever had as a seamer. So I'm told there are some issues with the development of more top quality seamers and spinners, but there looks to be a lot of batting depth, doesn't there? So yeah, Patidar seems. I mean, he clearly hasn't done himself justice. He's had a stinker, hasn't he? Bless him. That can happen. Really unfortunate. But the fact that they stuck with him shows there must be a lot there. But he obviously hasn't been able to kick on. But I don't think anyone doubts the strength of Indian cricket, do they? I mean, it's
Hope not.
I think they're the best ODI side in the world. They just didn't win the World Cup. I mean, they were the best side at that tournament. That's not to say Australia didn't deserve it. They did on the day. They played very well, but India looked like absolute certain that we're going to win. So I don't think anyone doubts the strength of Indian cricket, really. No, I don't.
I should say at this juncture, of course, you can read George's scene set of this final test, which I think we'll talk about England's sort of journey towards the Ashes, and also George piece from Jonny Bairstow from yesterday, as well as far more from this tour so far and this last week by subscribing to the Cricket digital offering for £23.99. I believe you can follow the link in the video description below. Sahil Mittal asks, and I guess that there's been a lot to chat about the pitch and conditions for this last test. Should Tom Hartley have been picked over Gus Atkinson, who obviously hasn't featured? He hasn't done well in a lot of the first innings and has been taken down a lot by Jaiswal and co. Isn't it very seamer-friendly conditions? Why play two specialist spinners? It doesn't sound like that's quite, from what Ben Stokes has been saying, quite as so much the case as they perhaps initially thought might be.
I don't think they're very seamer-friendly conditions. I think
it's just not 30 degrees.
Yeah, there's that, and it doesn't look like a desperately dry or surface, and the heat is obviously not going to be a huge factor in wear or even exhaustion of players or anything like that. But it just looks like a good flat batting track right now.
I think Stokes described it as a belting cricket wicket, didn't he? From what he
did, and that's good to hear, isn't it?
As they all have been, I think.
Been absolutely fine, yeah. Been the wickets. I don't think it's been an issue all series. I barely even a talking point, which is great. They could have gone a different way with it. I mean, I take your point about Hartley. I'm not massively convinced myself, but he is the top wicket taker of the series, isn't he? He has taken a record for a debut series. I mean, cut him some slack. It'd be a bit weird if they dropped him, wouldn't it? And also, they probably want to take a bit more of a look at him. It is interesting that Gus Atkinson has been carried around India for month after month without getting much of a game. But, I suspect if required, Stokes may bowl. I mean, he's left it open. I think he said it would be a bonus if he did. But he's clearly been working on it for a few weeks now and getting better and better. So, the last time I saw him bowl, he was bowling flat out. So he's been bowling flat out for a while. So, who knows whether it's the right decision? I can't really tell you. That we'll make that decision afterwards. But would you have wanted to go in with one spinner?
No.
I think so.
I also think they don't know. I think they maybe. I think they owe it to Gus Atkinson to not chuck him in for the fifth test of a series in a very long tour. There's sort of been a bit of a mission, isn't it, that didn't quite work out with Ollie Robinson doing, granted different situations, but throwing guys in having not had any kind of match practice.
Well, that's just the way of the modern world, though, I think.
No, sure. But this isn't. But I think without feeling like they need to, it doesn't strike me as a necessary. And as you say, it'd be tough on Tom Hartley, wouldn't it?
It would. I mean, you could argue that it would have been reasonable to look at Atkinson ahead of, I don't know, Anderson or Wood, in that it is a dead rubber and the Ashes are 20 months away and Atkinson might be the sort of bowler you want to take there. So I'm sure he'll be very disappointed.
He's obviously dropped out. He's obviously withdrawn from the IPL as well, isn't he? So he won't be doing.
He won't have 6 months in India without really.
Well, precisely.
That's what it would have been, isn't it? I mean, he did play, obviously, at the World Cup a little bit, and but he, that was basically 2 months. Yeah. 2 months on this tour without playing, and then potentially 2 months at the IPL, when he probably wouldn't have been a first choice. He might have played a bit. I think that's probably.
And he also did the Caribbean, didn't he? Back in December. So it's been a massive winter, regardless of how much cricket he's played or hasn't played. He's done World Cup, Caribbean, Test Series.
I don't know whether he would.
Probably many have done all three.
A massive winter or not,
or a long winter.
Well, I don't know. It's a lot shorter than spending it in England. I mean, I don't know. He'll have been handsomely paid, had a chance to work with good coaches and work on his fitness and soak up the environment. I mean, I think those are all opportunities. who knows what comes next? But he is absolutely one of those players they'll be looking at for the Ashes.
To go from the bowlers to the batting, Iron Man asks, and this probably isn't the first time you've been asked this on here, is Bazball a scapegoat for the inability of England's batters' technique against spin? He says, I mean, I can literally point out many technical problems in the dismissals of Ollie Pope, Jonny Bairstow, etc. No one talks about that these days. He says.
We talk about it all the time. Talk about it all the time. I don't know what you're talking. I honestly, I don't know what to say. I mean, I don't even like to use the word. I mean, it's almost impossible not to. I did laugh at the pictures of the England players with the Dalai Lama and wondered whether he had sought some wisdom, some McCullomisms. Anyway, on the so I prefer the word, and I'm trying to use it in almost every piece. McStokes about the era, because that is more reflective of it name checks Stokes for a start. So England, if they lose, the reaction is always, haha, not so Bazball now. They don't use the word. They never have. They've never liked it. And it's almost like something that's been constructed to use against them. At the same time, they have said some preposterous things. Of course they have. Ben Duckett saying it's nice that we've inspired Jaswell and all that sort of thing. It's different for every player. If you are Ben Duckett or Ollie Pope, and if you want to play this certain way, I can see some sense in sweeping and reverse sweeping to balls that traditionally you might have defended. I mean, Ben Duckett and Ollie Pope have played great innings this series. Genuinely, they were fantastic innings, and they did it in unconventional ways, both of them. Ben Duckett, for example, I mean, traditionally, you're taught that if you go to India, you're going to have to use your feet, you're going to have to, play in the V and all this sort of stuff. Well, he didn't, did he? He doesn't skip down the wicket. He doesn't play straight. And he played brilliantly. He got 150. And the same with Pope up to a point. He probably has a wider range of stroke. But I do get the sense, the logic rather, that if the ball is going to turn anyway and you vaguely trust the bounce, those cross-batted sweep shots are absolutely as safe as poking forward with a straight bat.
As Duckett has said many times, hasn't he?
Yeah, so there's some logic there. If the point in the question is that they attack because they don't trust their defence, well, yes. Yes, I've been saying that for months. But Ben Duckett would also tell you, and he's right, that the reason that he's gone to a different level is because he does trust his defence more. But the game has changed, and he does not bat like, I don't know, Jonathan Trott or Dennis Amiss or Jeff Boycott. It's different. The game's always changing, and it's probably as entertaining as it's ever been. But do you lose some things along the way? Yeah, you probably do. And what they've lost is a certain sort of defensive, patient sensibility. Yeah, I mean, is that a bit of a shame? Well, maybe. Yeah, it probably is. But is it also pretty thrilling to watch the way they play? Well, yeah, it is.
It's probably also true that they've been in many more tests in India in the last 2 months than they have been in the last 10 years. It's not like
I think so.
It's not like they've gone to India and torn up what was working for them. I mean,
right.
The 2021 series, like, it's fun, isn't it? Because if they'd gone to India this winter, let's say, with the same squad that they'd taken 3 years ago and played the same way as then, they'd be accused of, the old Einstein insanity stuff and, trying the same stuff, getting the same results.
Except they might well get the same result. If not,
no, absolutely, they might. They might well. Well, they have in a way, haven't they already?
The frustration would be that they probably have had glimpses of opportunity.
But were those glimpses of opportunity? So if we take the second test and Duckett's 100, was that glimpse of opportunity not born out of Duckett playing a way that would absolutely not have been the case 3 years ago or 7 years ago in the 2016-17 series or the 21 series?
Yes.
Like the glimpses have been born out of the way they're playing. The way they're playing is also just...
Sort of. Well, no, wait. That I mean, no. You see, I'm going to say, while you're right, it's also simplistic, and that it's never going to be binary. So actually,
Yeah, I was going to say.
in the fourth test, Joe Root's century was a traditional Joe Root innings. Anyway, I think it was it the slowest century in this McStokes era. So I don't think it's as ever.
But then, of course, then in the third innings, and this isn't to say this isn't to say that, in the third innings they bowled out for 130 odd and 45, 50 overs, weren't they? So actually, it wasn't. If anything, they don't say they weren't aggressive enough, but they did get stuck in a hole, didn't they? That second in that third innings, which I think, as some people said after the game, ironically, sort of the bit that they've been most frustrated with was perhaps the way they approached that, albeit always quite challenging phase of the game, where everyone sort of called it before, didn't you, that you will lose this game in the third innings, and 50 overs later, England hadn't really gone anywhere, and had sort of.
I thought it was very, very difficult to bat.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
I wouldn't have a lot of criticisms with them there. They should have bowled India out 50 or 100 cheaper. They would have done if they'd taken their catches. They probably should have scored an extra 50 runs. So I thought that the game was defined before then. But that's the other thing that you would have to say. In the third innings, India bowled brilliantly.
Yeah.
Forget what England are doing. India keeps seizing it. So it's not all about England. It's not all about bloody Bazball. And it's not all binary. So I would say that a lot of what they're doing has worked really well, has been entertaining, and has had a measure of success. But it just needs to be tailored and tempered a little bit. And actually, Ben Stokes, actually, Zach Crawley's batting really well. He looks terrific. He looks like he's come on. I actually think Duckett's batting pretty well. I don't think he's been outrageously aggressive, although he does play some extraordinary shots. It's they're nearly there. But they're up against a side that is actually better than them as well.
As you said, excellent. Without a few players, particularly at home.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be. India are probably very frustrated that they haven't quite managed to win the series in England, because the last 2 or 3 times I thought they were going to go really, really close, and maybe if it hadn't been for that COVID delay, they would have done. But obviously, England drew it with that remarkable Edgbaston test. It does feel that in this era they're pushing really hard to beat England in England, and it does feel that England still have a mountain to climb to do it in India, but. There have been glimpses of what could happen. Funnily enough, the World Cup game, it'll look now where India eventually thrashed England. England actually did show even then how you could beat India. They did expose the fact that there was a tail. They just didn't have the batting to do anything about it. The Indian bowling, particularly Mohammad Shami, was just awesome. And so they blew them away. But it's similar with this. It's very hard if England have lost a game by a run margin, the biggest since 1934 or whatever it was, to claim that they were in the game. It's absurd in a way, and yet they were. But this is what I mean. You're just getting glimpses through the clouds of a promised land that is just about obtainable. But a combination of being snatched away and England not quite harnessing it. But it's very hard to play to your optimum when you're up against a side that are better than you. And that's what happened in the third innings of the last game. England should have given themselves a bigger advantage at that point. I wouldn't be too critical of their batting in that third innings.
Finally, Jack Rule asks, surely playing county cricket in April will be perfect practice for these conditions. As you say, it's not quite, it doesn't sound quite what was teased, but
I think once every 4 years, county cricket is working a treat. I don't even mean that. I'm answering that in the spirit that the question was asked, which is sort of tongue in cheek. And it's true that, for those who maybe don't watch English cricket that closely, county cricket that closely, we have this ongoing debate about county cricket being played, or certainly championship cricket being played at the start and the end of the season, predominantly when conditions are not representative of the vast majority of Test cricket. And you could argue that England are going to a place where it's green and cold, and it's much more like traditional English conditions, but with a different ball, a different pitch. And just because it's cold doesn't mean it's going to swing or seam. But I think the question was tongue in cheek.
As I think was Thomas Jones's question, if Darren Stevens can't play in this match, is it time to accept that he's never playing a Test?
Oh, I don't know. Darren Stevens fans, and I think we're all Darren Stevens fans on a level. It's looking unlikely at this stage, isn't it? Poor little fella.
The odds are lengthening.
But you've got to keep dreaming. The funny thing is, in these conditions, in lots of conditions, he wouldn't have let England down. He was a very, very good cricketer. I mean, everyone knows this. Would he have done well if he had ended up playing a Test in Australia? Well, with the ball, no, probably not. With the bat, the thing is, yeah, I'm not for a second suggesting that he should have been picked or anything, but there are quite a lot of bowlers who have had success bowling, I don't know, 80 miles an hour. How fast was Vernon Philander? Chaminda Vass, a bit taller, I guess. Terry Alderman. Jimmy Anderson now. I don't know. If you bowl in good areas and swing it, which hasn't got anything to do with the pitch, he's still going to do a job. And he could bat, He could really bat.
He really could. He was a batter who bowled, wasn't he?
At the start of his career, he was very much a batter.
He was a batter who didn't bowl at the start of his career. He was
for years.
He was a batter who didn't bowl until about 2005, I want to say. But
yes.
Possibly later.
Yes, and then he was very skillful. So I always feel it's a bit. I wouldn't like people to think of him as like a figure of fun or something, because
agreed.
Yeah, okay, you know what I'm saying. I mean, he was obviously a very, very skillful cricketer. He had an incredibly good career.
He was a figure of fun who well into his 40s. He was a figure of fun who well into his 40s was slapping championship double hundreds, championship sixers, nicking off very good players. Had an Australian WhatsApp group named after him or something, didn't he? As you say, it was more than he was a cult figure, but he was not a figure of. He was far more than a figure of fun.
Did you see, talking of cult figures who are far more than a figure of fun, that the Dalai Lama's rooms were full of pictures of Jack Shantry? And if you don't believe me, check out the Worcestershire Twitter feed, which show that the Dalai has been inspired by the wisdom of ShantryFacts.
Oh dear.
You don't believe me?
No, I'm just looking at it now. But on that note,
you're not saying this is AI. Are they more fake than those pictures of Trump?
It's deep fake gone mad, isn't it? But
don't tell me this is fake.
I'll say on that curious note, don't quite know how we've ended up there with Jack Shantry and Darren Stevens at the end of it. The discussion of the fifth Test. Enjoy the final week of the Test winter, as it were, from an England men's perspective.
Well, I'm going to be living your lifestyle a bit more, aren't I? Getting up at 3:30, and
5 or 6 coffees. You'll be flying by
freezing
9:30.
Yeah, that's fine. It's fun. I'm looking forward to it.